there, fellow nerds, geeks, supporters of independent creators, and avid con goers. Aaron Naboots here, and on this episode of the Holly Show podcast, my co-host Alex Benedicto and I welcome Steve Kirk, the founder of the new kid on the convention block, Intergalacticon. What? Another con, you say? But wait, if an intimate convention experience for fans, by fans, and of the fans is what you are looking for, then come free your fandom on June 15th and 16th, 2018 at the Town & Country in beautiful San Diego, California. Heroes will hang with villains, Stormtroopers will photobomb Klingons. It will be a weird and wonderful good time, and we can't wait. Steve brought the goods on this episode. Not only was he an awesome guest, but he brought some awesome swag. A pint glass, stickers, and a commemorative coin. From our conversation, I got the impression that he's taken into account details that other cons may often overlook. For instance, a cosplay maintenance room where you can make minor fixes. How cool is that? We hope you enjoy this podcast with Steve, and if you happen to be in San Diego that weekend, please stop by and check out Intergalacticon's inaugural event. Hey, fellow nerds and geeks, welcome to the Hall H Show podcast. On this episode, we are joined by Mr. Steve Kirk from Intergalacticon. He's I guess he's a founder and main organizer. We met recently, was it a few months ago maybe, at Galactic Brewery?
Intergalactic Brewing.
Is it? Okay,
yep.
Intergalactic
yep.
Brewery. I see a theme here.
Right, yeah. It's all over the place.
So he's here to talk about Intergalacticon, which makes its debut June 15th. It's a Friday. Coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's going to be at the Town & Country here in San Diego, California. And we're looking forward to it. But before we get to that, I want to get to know you a little bit better.
Oh, please.
All heroes have an origin story, right? So
yes.
Why don't you tell us about yours? I mean, where did you grow up? How were you at 11?
I grew up on the West Coast, as is the short answer, because I was, my dad was military. So even after he retired, we still moved around a lot. So literally California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, you name it. So kind of my nerd story starts in 1977 when my mom bought me my first comic book at the 7-Eleven on the corner, and I still remember it and I still have it. Shogun Warriors number 17.
Nice.
It's pretty tattered at this point, mind you, because at 7 years old you had no concept of keeping comic books nice. You just you had it and you rolled it up and you kept it in your bag and under your pillow at night, and so it's a little tattered, it's a little frayed, but I do still have it.
Yeah, I think mine was coincidentally at a 7-Eleven, one of those spinner racks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And it might have been the one of the issues of the adaptation of the Battlestar Galactica TV series.
Oh yes, yes.
So yeah,
I'm actually in the middle of rewatching the newer series right now.
Okay.
Yeah, right in the middle of it.
Nice. What else were you into?
Man,
I know you're into video games, right?
Oh, since Pong came out, I remember getting in good with the school district and was able to play these text-based games on their mainframe that printed out the next step for you. So I've been in video games my entire life, including part of my professional career, and I was in D&D for a long time. And in fact, that's how I learned how to do computer programming back in the early 80s was, well, I need to write a database to keep track of all the comic books I have now. And as I got more proficient, I started taking D&D modules saying, let me try and computerize this and turn it into a game I can play on either the Commodore 64 or the Apple IIe back in the day. So wow. Going back a ways. But and then, the movies and the franchises. So I've always been a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel and DC to an extent. And I've been into all of that for my entire life.
Now, yeah, when you said the Apple IIe, or I remember playing Oregon Trail.
Yes. Yes. And constantly dying of dysentery.
Right.
Yes.
That brings back so many memories.
Yes.
Now, I take it you ended up eventually working in the like an IT. Is that something that sort of, because I know that you were involved with DEF CON as well, right?
I was. So my IT career kind of spawned from that cliche of following in my father's footsteps. So when he was in the Air Force, he was in what they called data processing at the time, which later became MIS, which later became IT. And he used to take me down. He worked for Riverside County last in his career, and he was always on call. He'd take me down on the weekends when he got called in and put me in front of a mainframe terminal, old green screen thing, right? And said, here, play with this for a while. I was like, oh, I can bang on these keys and something appears on the screen. This is fantastic. Oh, my God. So I got into computers at a very, very early age and studied it in college. My degree was in business administration, but with a minor focus on MIS or IT at the time as well. So went into IT for the first half of my life, and in, 2003, ended up integrating that into the video game industry as well. When I moved back to the West Coast from Texas, I ended up getting a job at a independent video game developer, mostly because I had DEF CON on my resume. So for those not familiar with DEF CON, it's now generally known as the largest hacker convention in the world. And I started working there in its third year back in 95 when we were about 150 people attending.
Oh, wow.
It was about a large party at that point.
Right.
And today, I think this is the 26th or 27th year this year, it's over 25,000 people.
That's a good size.
It's grown, and I was involved for 19 years, running the network, and then later running operations for the entire show. Learned a lot and had a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, and that's, running DEF CON and having that on my actual resume got me into the video game industry, and now it's kind of part of what has gotten me into running my own con. Because I miss it. I might be slightly psychotic to say that, but it was a lot of fun. And I stepped aside from DEF CON and cons for a couple years to focus on my career. And now that I've stepped out of corporate life, I got the chance to sit back and think about what did I want to do next. And a big part of that was I miss DEF CON and I miss running cons. And there's such a blend of both the logical, tactical, strategic side, and the business side of things, along with the creative side. So it's a really good blend of both the left brain and right brain process, all in one crazy, insane package. So it was about a year and a half ago when I stepped down that path and have been running full speed ever since.
So is this where the Guardian Council comes into play?
Absolutely. So I am smart enough to know I do not know everything, and definitely needed help in designing and running this show. You can't do it by yourself by any means whatsoever. And we wanted to reach out to a diverse set of demographics, to many different fandoms. And I'm by no means do I think that I know them all or am an expert in any of them, even the ones I'm involved in. So I pulled together people I knew from different backgrounds, cosplayers and video gamers and people into books and comics and cosplay, and pulled them together to basically be an advisory board. But you couldn't call it that because that sounds too corporate. So I refer to them as the Guardian Council because they really do help, frankly, guard the mission of the con and help guide and advise. So in many ways, they are guardians for what we're trying to put together.
And let me just read something from your website, which I thought was pretty funny. It was the inaugural Intergalacticon will be a con for the fans, by the fans, and of the fans. Speakers will present in more engaging settings. Parties, events, and social lounges will bring fans together for face-to-face fun. Heroes will hang with villains. Stormtroopers will photobomb Klingons. It will be a weird and wonderful good time. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
That is all 100% true. The idea has been to make this a con truly for fans by fans, and in that way make it a broad and diverse set of content with a little bit of everything for everyone. So it's certainly by no means as big as something like San Diego Comic-Con, and in fact, we're trying to remain small and intimate. That's our big mission.
Well, I guess the tagline is "Welcome to," or was it "Welcome to your intimate universe"? Is that how it goes?
Small and intimate universe? Yeah. And with the experience doing DEF CON and other events, I have a pretty good idea of how big an event can be and still maintain that feeling of small and intimate. Small and intimate could still be several thousand people, but in the right space, you can still attain that. You still want the ability to have, be able to walk around, interact with your friends, meet new people. If you will, the antithesis of Mardi Gras. It's, if you've ever gone down Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras, it's like body surfing involuntarily. It's quite an experience. No one should ever experience that in their life. I did it twice. So there are ways we can do that at different scales in different spaces. But we want to have, like I said, we want to have a little bit of everything for everybody. So for both hardcore fans as well as the casual fans, because there's just a lot of people here who are craving this type of experience. We found we did, a lot of kind of probing out into the various communities and asking people around, the proverbial market research, as they would say, and people immediately got excited about having a con of this size, a small to medium-sized con, where it's very easy for them to go and participate and do the things they want to do. So those are some of the things that are top in our mind in thinking that this could be successful. And when we're picking exhibitors and workshops and speakers, all that's right there in the forefront about thinking, is this something people want to go to? How do we make sure we don't focus on any specific fandom too much? So keep it broad. And as a first year, this is a prototype. This is a beta test. Right. And we will gather tons of feedback, I hope, and adjust for next year. And next year we'll adjust for the year after that, and so on and so forth. And that will be part of the journey.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to having fun at this con, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
But one thing about the whole left and right brain thing, and one thing I also saw, I guess from the Forbes article, it's and I thought this was really cool. This is a classic example, which I often seen overlooked, having someone from operations make sure that trash cans are emptied periodically. I mean, the details, The details
matter so much. We are designing this as an experience. It's not just a con. A con is something you go and you show up to. This is an experience. I want people to walk away with a feeling, hopefully a very positive feeling, to be fair. I want people to be excited for next year. And the only way to do that is to really give them something to feel good about this year. I've been to big cons, I've been to small cons, I've helped run DEF CON and whatnot. Those little details can leave impressions in people's mind, even if it's subconscious. Mm-hmm. So I've been to cons where nobody checked the trash and people kept throwing things away, and pretty soon the bin was overflowing. Now it's on the floor. Now it's a hot afternoon and it's starting to smell. And you may not make a conscious association in your mind as you're walking around, but you smell it, you see it, and it's just a little bit of negative experience. And it's such an easy thing for us to do as con organizers to make sure somebody's paying attention to those things.
Right.
Is there a water station? Is it full? Are there cords in the way? How is the foot traffic flow going? So we've got to think about everything from the big things about making sure the speakers get to the stage on time, down to are the water stations full? Are the trash bins emptied? We've got to cover it all. Otherwise, we're failing to provide a good experience.
Mm-hmm. And how many volunteers are on staff right this year?
Oh, I think we're going to be around 30.
Okay.
From what my department heads tell me.
Why don't we talk about the speakers that you have lined up?
I have some.
Yeah.
Yes. Where would you like to start? Gosh.
Well, why don't we like delve into how you decided to approach, initially some of the ones that you wanted to bring on board?
This was the first thing I wanted to look at were from a celebrity point of view, because we have a couple of names coming, people who did not want to stay on the other side of the velvet rope, as I like to say, which is to say people who love engaging with their fans. Because I've been to cons where sometimes, the celebrities are sit there, they sign your autograph and you shuffle on, and you really don't get any time with them. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen celebrities who sit there saying, no, we're going to stay here for the next 3 hours until everybody who bought a ticket is through. And they're committed to their own fan base. And they like sitting down and taking photos and telling stories and being interactive with their fans. They are very willing to meet them halfway, as it were. And those are the people I wanted to focus on, is looking for people who would come and be as interested in the fans as the fans were in them. Because again, this creates memories for people to take away. Mm-hmm. The smallest thing that a celebrity does for a fan, they potentially can remember that for the rest of their lives. It's, even if it's a 10-second interaction, it leaves such a positive experience. So from that point of view, I wanted to find people who are very engaging. And we're also people could connect with. They might have inspiring stories, or there's something very real and intimate about them that, even listening to them from the audience, you have a good chance of feeling like you're getting a little bit more intimate with them and almost creating a bond. And then from the other sets of speakers and panelists, people with real stories, people with experiences that let you understand how fandom affects all sorts of areas of our lives. So again, looking for ways that people can connect their fandom to the topic of the speaker. So whether it's Ryan Schneider talking about video games and becoming an Ironman athlete and how those actually dive together pretty well, to our music panel, to our teachers panel, teachers using their comic book and movie fandoms in teaching children. Those are really good, deep, real-world stories that can interest a broad set of people. It's not something you have to be a hardcore fan to appreciate. So kind of goes back to wanting a diverse set of content.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you're going to be really busy, right?
I suspect so.
Now, what are some? I'm sure you'd probably say I want to see all the panels, but what are some of the panels that you wish you would be able to see?
Okay, so I have to see Claudia Christian's panel, who's doing our keynote, opening the show. I'm going to run down the entire list is what's going to happen. I have to see Colin Cantwell because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I really want to see the Eureka panel because we put so much effort into making this mini Eureka reunion. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a panel I don't want to see. And I'm not just trying to be fair to everybody, but I'm just personally excited about each and every one of them. Mm-hmm. They're all going to have something special about them. And I'm really excited to see how the content turns out and see how the audience reacts. Because this, like I said, this is a beta test. So I want to see what people really get interested in and see how we adjust the content for next year.
Mm-hmm. And for next year, I'm assuming it's going to be successful.
Thank you. Me too.
This year, it's sort of like you have a day zero,
right,
which is Friday, and then you have the actual con day, which is Saturday. Next year, maybe maybe a whole weekend?
Yeah, the plan would then be, for second year, go to a full weekend format. Mm-hmm. Again, year one, let's do this. Let's keep it somewhat simple and, again, kind of in a beta test mode. So this allows us to really build the foundation of the show, whether it's organizationally or functionally, or build the relationship with the hotel and understand how everything's going to work. And then in year two, all that becomes easier and then allows us more time to focus on the content and programming because we'll have to do twice as much next year.
Right, definitely. And I heard your interview with Leonard and Alyssa.
Oh, yeah.
Last weekend. And you said that there's still a long wait list for exhibitors.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes, and I even have people on the wait list pinging me going, has anything happened yet? Have I moved up the list yet? So people are excited about exhibiting, and it's like I said last weekend, I'm just absolutely flattered that we've got so much interest in this, especially as a first-year con.
About how many exhibitors do you anticipate?
I think I've got 27 or 28 booths right now, which first-year con, that's not bad. No. I'd originally planned, I think, 18, so we've just about increased it by 50% because we had so much interest. And I wish I could increase it more because we still have people on the wait list, and I think at this point we're maxed out as much as we can without impacting other areas of the con or foot traffic or other types of logistics. So again, thinking about the whole thing top to bottom is we can't cause choke points, we can't cause issues for fire and safety, but we do as much as we can. We push as far as we can.
Also from last week's interview with Leonard and Alyssa on Cup of Tea SDCC, you guys covered a little bit about the funding, how you're self-funded.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty incredible in light of some of the recent events of some of the other cons that sort of crashed and burned.
There's such a huge aspect of being successful in this, which is related to running it as a business, because if you don't look at it like that, then it's just a very expensive hobby, and you can go off the rails. So I look at every dollar we've invested as an investment. What are we going to get out of this $5,000 we put into this area, or whatever it might be? Is this going to help drive ticket sales? Is this going to help increase the content or the programming or the quality of something? Will this make a better experience? And as a first year, there's a lot of startup costs. So this is a very expensive year. But many of those costs are going to pay off in the next 5 years. So they are good things to invest in right now. Even down to things like we bought a PA system so that we can use that over the next 5 or potentially 10 years, as opposed to renting it. So that helps manage our cost structure long term, so that big picture, we're thinking about how do the ticket costs need to scale in the long term if the con grows, if attendance grows, and if the venue grows. How do we manage that cost structure to keep the ticket price very manageable and reasonable to the attendees? So you have to look at the business aspect of all this at the same time. And so there are some people that I have seen go out there with very little money and try and get sponsors and Kickstarters to fund their show, which is great. And anybody who tries to put on a con, they have a lot of courage, and I salute them. But you do need to understand how funding and partnerships and sponsorships all work ahead of time to make that successful.
I think the first time I met you, we had briefly talked about Intergalacticon, and you said that's how it would be a good opportunity for cosplayers to sort of test their cosplays before San Diego Comic-Con. You want
to? I think it's a great opportunity. Cosplayers are never 100% successful the first time they put on their new costume. They've spent months working on it, and every single one of them tells me they'll try it on and something will snap, something will break. They didn't get this measurement right. Something has to be adjusted. So this actually, even as close as we are to Comic-Con, about a month, 5 weeks out, it actually makes a great opportunity then for cosplayers to come out. They've been working potentially a year on what they're going to wear at Comic-Con, then come to Intergalacticon, try it out, see how it works. Go out in public, give this a shot for a day or two, and make it a little bit more perfect for when Comic-Con comes around a month later. Even to the point that I think one of the unique things we're able to offer is we've set up a costume repair room, which not many cons do. So we're going to have a room set aside where people can, come make a quick fix to their costume. We'll have, hot glue guns and threads and needles and a little bit of fabric in there. It's a quick fix room. It's not a total repair. It's not the whole shop, but it's something where they'll have an opportunity to just make a quick fix without having to run back to the room or run back home or do something more involved.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's often definitely an overlooked thing at cons.
Like I said, we're trying to make this a positive experience. So this is what the Guardian Council has been able to do, is bring in these types of ideas to say, hey, it would be really great if we could do something like this for this community. Oh, I've got space, I've got a room. It doesn't really cost me anything to do this, so why don't we do this? This is fantastic. We should do this for the people.
Right. Is there anything else you want to add to Intergalacticon before we move on to the other segments?
The other thing that I think that is somewhat unique that I like to call out is we've also got a social lounge. So how many times have we been to something like Comic-Con and seen people spend their $20 on their hot dog and Coke and then end up sitting in the hallway to eat it because there's no place to sit, much less relax.
That's one of Alex's biggest peeves.
Oh, yeah. It's rough, man. So what we've done is we've taken one of the ballrooms and opened it up to the artist exhibitor space and made just a large artist exhibitor social space where literally half of it is tables, as well as we're bringing in sofas and what we, just in general, soft furniture, somewhere where you can relax, sit down with your friends, figure out your next move, just take a load off if you want. Maybe, go through your merchandise that you've bought. And you'll have visibility to the artists and exhibitors right there. So it can be very interactive. It can be very relaxing. And again, it's important that you look to what will make a good experience for the attendees. And that's part of why we're doing this, is seeing what they've missed from other shows and how can we fill that in? How can we do something different?
Oh, yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about was when you were actually looking for a venue, I mean, can you sort of describe that process and how long it actually took for you to find Town and Country?
It took us 2 or 3 months to do the research and do the visits and whatnot. What's kind of interesting is, even as big as San Diego is, looking for a venue that had enough space, not just this year, but that we could grow into for the next potentially 5 years or more.
Right.
There's only a handful of places, especially if you want to avoid the convention center, which from an event point of view, a convention center is a large warehouse, and in and of itself has no inherent personality or character. You have to build that and bring that in. So looking for a conference space or a meeting space that has a good vibe, a good energy, a good environment to it. We were looking for a good 20 to 25,000 square feet this first year, and wanted to have a space that we could grow into 50, 60, 80,000 over the next few years, because moving hotels year to year is just a huge pain. So wanting to find a place and develop a relationship and stay there for a while. So we ended up with, I think, 4 places on our short list that we took a weekend and went around visiting. And we saw Town and Country last, I think in part because we knew that would be the place. And sure enough, we saw a couple other event spaces and kind of went there and went, okay, well, this isn't bad. I'm not sure about the vibe here. It's very nice. It's very clean. Well, this place is a little disconnected. This place, well, if we did this and we shoved this in over here and we made people walk down this hallway, we could potentially make this space work. And then we got to Town and Country, and I'd been there before. My planner lives out of town, so it was her first time. But we walked on the campus and just were like, yep, this is it. This is the space. Because it's such kind of an oasis away from everything else. You really, once you're on campus in the resort there, you feel isolated from the rest of suburbia going on around you. It's very relaxing. There's a lot of greenery, the palm trees, the pink flamingos, the colorful rabbits in one area. It has a lot of character, and it felt like, they've got a lot of space. We can grow into it. We could be very happy here for a number of years.
Plus, the parking's pretty ample.
And they've got lots of parking. Always a plus, right?
Yeah.
Especially in San Diego.
I guess we'll delve into the Thunder Round, or off the beaten path set of questions.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to Alex.
All right. Okay. Let's go with the first question. If a movie was made about your life, what kind of music would be on the soundtrack?
It would be a mix of different styles, to be honest. There'd be some classical, some jazz, hopefully some guitar rock, and probably some Buddhist chanting somewhere in there too.
That's pretty eclectic.
Yeah. My life has gone in a lot of different areas, so there's a music and a mood for every corner.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. All right. What are your 3 favorite video games of all time, and why did you pick those?
Let's see. Command and Conquer, God of War, and Destiny.
Disney.
Yep. Command and Conquer was something I got back into when it was first released, just,
Real-time
20,
strategy.
30,
Oh, the
70
real-time
years ago.
strategy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then later on in my life, I ran into people who worked on it, so that made it even more cool. And I still play it today. It's one of those things I can play against the computer for an hour on a Sunday morning just to escape for a little bit. So I still play the Command and Conquer series. God of War was one of my favorite PlayStation games, and still is. Not just because I worked there, but I really genuinely enjoyed the game, and the story and the characters, and the gameplay was great. And it was, with the story focusing around classic Greek myths, it was so well developed. It just touched me somehow. It was something kind of unique from a lot of other video games. And then Destiny 2 is probably the one first-person shooter that I'm in any way decent at. So it has to win some award for that.
Cool. All right. If you were president of the United States, what kind of artwork would you hang up on the Oval Office?
I'd end up doing, I don't know if I could narrow down an artist, but probably a lot of oil-based landscapes. And I say that because if I think about what I've got up around my own home, a couple of my favorite pieces of art are oil-based landscapes, one of them being this view from a porch on an Italian villa overlooking like the Amalfi Coast, looking out over the ocean. And ever since I bought the thing 20 years ago, I'm like, this is what retirement looks like. And it's bringing that sense of peace and calm to the room that I really enjoy. So probably something along those lines.
Cool. Is it like some of the places you visited before?
Places I would want to visit.
Want to visit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Even if they're not quite real, it at least provides that sense of serenity that, gosh, if I were president of the United States, that'd be one of the most stressful jobs in the world. So finding something to balance that out and help you remain a little bit zen during the day would absolutely be important.
All right, next one. What statement would you have Bart from The Simpsons write on the chalkboard?
My first thought was, how do I turn this into a Star Wars thing? Which, if I were to do that, I'd probably make him quote Obi-Wan over and over and just saying, hello there, hello there, hello there, since that's one of my favorite greetings.
All right, let's see. You have a one-way trip back into time to change any event. What event would you change?
An event I would change.
It's one-way trip back.
Oh, one way. Oh, interesting. Oh. And then I have to change it. That's almost a two-part question. Because one, I'm fascinated with World War II, so I might go back to World War II somehow. But then you do the whole classic, do you go back and kill Hitler and avoid all that? But then you have the butterfly effect, and is that necessarily even better? It might be. Wow. No, actually, no. The other time period I would go back to would be medieval times, because I'm fascinated by the whole Arthurian myth and Knights of the Round Table and whatnot. So maybe, potentially if that were real. And I've been to the mythical castle where Arthur was supposedly born out on the Cornwall coast, and it's a fascinating place to go. I mean, it's rubble at this point. It's a couple of stones on the ground, but there's such an amazing energy there that, maybe I'd go back and try to make sure that little affair didn't happen and see how the Arthur legend turns out otherwise.
That's funny. Before we go on, you were talking about World War II and Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast. He had a guest named Tim Kennedy. He's like an ex-special forces guy. He actually re-enlisted, but he was also a former UFC fighter. And but he's doing all these like TV shows, and one of the TV shows that he's doing or did was one about finding Hitler. So he kind of got into it, and he talks about how they really can't confirm that the body that they found was actually Hitler's.
I've heard that.
Because they did some DNA testing, and it actually turned out to be a woman.
Mm.
So and they can't confirm if it was Hitler's companion because none of the descendants would consent to have their DNA tested.
Sure.
And then so that all goes to like the whole how like a lot of SS they sort of migrated to South America.
Yeah,
so there's a whole like community out there of like neo-Nazis who are like they're instead of like against the Jews, they're like against the locals. So it's like it's a huger than you think. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So that means Hitler is Snoke.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Wow. All right. Last question.
Sure.
What Jedi or Sith would you want to be a paladin or apprentice to?
Oh, that's easy. I'd study under Kenobi.
Oh, yeah.
He's my favorite. People ask me, who I associate with most, and it's always Obi-Wan. He holds a very special place in my heart ever since Sir Alec Guinness played him back in '77. So he's always been my favorite character.
Definitely. I think I might have to agree if I ever wanted to become a Padawan.
I own a number of combat grade sabers, and my favorite is the Obi-Wan replica. It was my first, and it's still just my favorite for lots of reasons.
Speaking of sabers, you want to talk about your little group that you're part of?
I do some of that, yeah. So I'm one of the founding members of a local group called San Diego Sabers, and we are a lightsaber combat group. And we started when The Force Awakens came out, and our intention was there's nobody in town at that time who was doing any sort of actual real life combat training with lightsabers. It was starting to become a community across the nation, but there was nothing here in San Diego. And we ran across a fellow, Eric, who is actually a proper Jedi battle master. He's trained in all the lightsaber combat forms. And we got together and said, why don't we do this since nobody else is doing it? And so we have a group called San Diego Sabers, and we train in what we've kind of described as true mixed martial arts in terms of swordplay as it applies to lightsabers. So there's a lot of swordplay aspects in there, as well as various martial arts, both Eastern and European. So HEMA and SCA, as well as things like Kendo and Wushu, are all integrated in some way, shape, or form to the various lightsaber forms as lightly explained in Star Wars canon. So we've come up with kind of an interesting combination, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We practice several times a week, and we have a formal Jedi Padawan apprentice program if people really want to pursue like a full-on training regimen. And then we go out and we hold events and tournaments from time to time. And in fact, they'll be out at Intergalacticon doing what we're calling a national tournament, since we actually have people from across the country coming to participate.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So they have to find their own kyber crystals?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all on you. Absolutely. But they'll be there during the day. During the day, they'll be doing training and demos for people. So if they want to come out and learn how to swing lightsabers, or we've got some soft sabers that we call boffers, which are great for kids and also great for couples for marriage therapy. Very popular. So
it's like my friend, he was in a band, and each time they got into a disagreement, they'd bring out the boxing gloves.
Yep, it's exactly the same type of thing.
And where can people find out more information about that?
San Diego Sabers, you can find us at sandiegosabers.net, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm told a few other places that I always forget. But yeah, sandiegosabers.net, and we keep information up there as well as our podcast as well, because we also...
Oh, nice.
We'd hate to be bored, so we do a podcast every week as well.
That's incredible. It's like everybody's starting to get into podcasting now.
Yeah.
I guess the next segment is Art Watch. Alex, do you want to go first?
Sure. Lately I've been watching a lot of live streaming, so I've been on Twitch a lot lately, and a lot of them artists I find is from watching Jim Lee, and then after he's done, he hosts or raids another streamer, and when he raided was American living in Ireland. He's a sculptor. His name is Nick Brown, and he goes by Lorecraft, so you can find him on lorecraft.com and all his social media. But his latest one I saw, first time I saw him worked on a Venom, It was like a life-size bust of Venom. It was pretty cool. He made the teeth, just making all the veins, and now he's working on Hellboy right now, which he made the cigar hollow, so you could put like an incense in it and it'll smoke. So it's pretty cool.
Cool.
So, yeah, see how that turns out. So Lorecraft.
Okay, cool. Steve?
So, interestingly, this ties back into our own podcast a little bit, although it's not as self-serving as it sounds. We're part of a podcast network called the Star Wars Commonwealth, and back around December timeframe, I think, somewhere around, right before Last Jedi came out, this guy contacts a number of us in the network, and he started listening to our shows, and he'd fallen away from his Star Wars fandom for a long time. And he started listening to a number of the different shows in the network and wrote in and voice clipped in and told us his story about how he's suddenly become re-energized and he's found his passion again through listening to these podcasts. And it's just kind of such a touching, heartwarming story when you hear him tell it. But the result of that was that he started doing a lot of stop-motion Lego films.
Oh, wow.
And he's really fantastic about it. I mean, it's a, I'll say kid because I'm old, but he's got, I think he's around 21, but he'll put, just hours and hours of work into these Lego stop motion films. So the guy's name is Matthew Salvatore, and you can find him on Twitter at Salvatore_Chief, or on YouTube, his channel is Pure Genius Lego Stop Motion Studios. And he's done some Star Wars scenes. He's done some Lord of the Rings scenes. He's starting to do some video game scenes. And it's really cool to see somebody reinvigorated to find their passion again and then carry on with it and do something that they really care about. And he's done some amazing stuff. So he's worth checking out.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely check him out. I guess my pick for this episode is Art Watch. And just to remind the audience, Art Watch, we kind of use it loosely. Anybody creative is an artist in our eyes. So you could be a writer, cosplayer, photographer, filmmaker. For me, we had a previous podcast guest named Rylan Grant, episode 40. He's the writer and creator of the comic book Aberrant. And it's currently in previews right now, and it's slated to come out just before San Diego Comic-Con. But he has an event coming up June 9th. It's actually a signing event up in LA for his first issue. So I encourage anybody who can make it to LA to go check it out. I'll be there to support him. It's going to be at Comics versus Toys in Eagle Rock, June 9th from 2 to 4. So he'll have issues 1 and 2 there. And you can meet the creator and get it signed. So I encourage our audience to go check it out. And our next segment is superhero shoutouts, because we have to give thanks, because we can't do what we do, without it. A little help every once in a while, right? So, Alex, who do you want to thank this week or this episode?
Let's see. Last time I did, we did a podcast the other day, and I did the vets. So I'll do it again since it's Labor Day weekend.
Memorial Day.
For all the vets, especially the ones who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So this weekend, it's Labor Day weekend or Memorial Day weekend to all the vets out there, and the ones who passed and the ones currently serving.
Cool. Steve?
So it would be real obvious for me to just thank everyone at IGC, but that's too obvious. It's been my life for the last year and a half, and I couldn't do it without every single one of them. However, I will go much deeper than that. And there's a gentleman named David who ended up becoming a bit of a mentor of me many years ago. And the most valuable thing he taught me was to value everyone, no matter what position in the company they held, whether they were in the mailroom or whether they were the CEO. Is he taught me by example how important it is to celebrate everyone in a way. And that's followed me my entire life, and I think has seeped into my career, and is some of the stuff that even seeps into creating IGC, is celebrating and valuing everybody who's part of the community. So that was something that has just stuck with me my entire life.
That's awesome. for me, just celebrated my mom's birthday last weekend, so I have to give thanks to my mom because without her, I mean, moms give you unconditional love, and she's helped me a lot, growing up, and she was a former teacher, and so whenever I was having trouble in school, she'd always, tutor me and make sure that I, would understand the stuff that was going on in school, and whenever I needed anything, she was always there. Like, my parents never pushed me in any direction. They kind of just let me, find my way, which I've always appreciated. So thanks to my mom.
Very nice.
I guess before we close out the show and get to your social media contacts, we have, this segment where you sort of flash forward and you want to talk about maybe any other projects you have going on that you want to sort of promote.
I'm not sure I can think past June 16th right now. We are already working on IGC for next year, and we're talking about the year beyond that. Short of that, I want to go on vacation.
That's right.
So I'm hoping to be able to plan that for later this year. Doing this has just become such an outlet for my passion that it's hard to imagine doing anything else right now. I've been asked to help with other events and other projects, and some of them I've turned down, and there's some that we're talking about. But, IGC is just the biggest thing in my life right now. So if I look forward, it's how do we keep this going for the next 5, 10, 15 years? And even to the point where if we maintain the mission of being small and intimate, Intergalacticon San Diego gets capped at some point. So we maintain that. And we would probably expand by going to a different city and serving that same type of market there where there's this demand for something else, or maybe people can't get into the big con that's in their area because it sells out, like a Cher concert. But there's more and more geek demand out there. So that's probably where we go 5, 10 years from now. So
this is Intergalacticon SD. Are there plans to go to other cities?
In my head, yes. Yes. You can't get ahead of yourself too far, but there's a short list of names in my head. And we've got to at least see how the first year goes before we go too far. But yeah, there's other things. My design agency went as far as designing me a logo for Intergalacticon London, which is very ambitious, and I appreciate that. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but it's good to have goals.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I remember going back to your interview with Leonard and Alyssa last weekend. Somebody had asked about, because you're talking about Eureka.
Oh, yes.
And somebody asked about Will Wheaton.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And I was thinking, I didn't get a chance to make the comment on the comment section or the chat, but since I was going to talk to you anyway, I was going to say, I think Will Wheaton's a big tabletop gaming fan.
He is.
So maybe there's an angle that we can do there to do tabletop gaming, more of a presence at the con.
I think that would be really interesting to see if we could get him next year or the year after.
Yeah.
This first year, you can only attract so many heads because you're one day, and there is a little bit of people going, well, is a one-day con worth it? And I get it. That's fine and fair. So once we go to a full weekend format, pulling some of those other names might become easier. And few people have as much geek cred as he does, so he would be a great addition.
Right. I think he likes beard as well.
I like beer too.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. So speaking of which, I'm going to disrupt you for a moment, and I would be a bad organizer if I did not present you with some IGC swag.
Oh my gosh. I'm opening up a box. He just handed to me. Oh, sweet.
In fact, one of these items you are the first person to receive.
Oh, the stickers.
Well, stickers have been out. But
the coin.
Nice.
we have designed and had made challenge coins for this year. Anybody who buys a VIP ticket gets one as their VIP gift, and we may have a couple extra to sell around. But I saved a few aside to provide to special friends and family.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The coin says it's their hashtag, free your fandom. So thank you very much.
And there's even an Easter egg on there, which I will let you discover in your own time.
Is that Excalibur?
It could be. That's one of the illustrations that we had created as part of our artwork. But there's an Easter egg.
All right. We'll take a closer look at it. Is there anything else you want to add for Intergalacticon?
I hope everybody comes and checks it out. We'd love for everybody to be there. We'd love to be sold out this year. That would be a fantastic problem to have. But you can check it all out on intergalacticonsd.com, where we've got all the programming, we've got all the exhibitors, artists. Tickets are on sale.
Awesome. Alex, do you have any other questions you want to ask? Cool. Why don't you close out the show?
All right. Thank you for listening to the Hall H Show podcast. We love putting a spotlight on some of our favorite pop culture and comic book creatives and intimate fan-friendly conventions like Intergalacticon. Special thanks to our founder, Steve Kirk, for taking the time talking to us today. And you can find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and our website, hallh.com. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators, we would appreciate a rating and a comment on iTunes. And please spread the word on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Peace, cheers, and please make it a point to visit Artist Alley at all conventions you plan on going to this year. Thank you. Bye.